Hello, everybody, and welcome to our conference from ISCOM for this series Avenir. My name is Rebecca Dry. I am the Scientific Director of the International Program here at ISCOM. Thank you so much for joining this little conference. As you know, this is a conference. This is not a opinion. This is not a a statement. This is just a discussion to look at some ideas, to look at some facts as well, but really just to start something off, a conversation. Why have I chosen the theme of the new, or the global citizen, new in brackets, is because not only we consider in the international program at ISCOM that being a global citizen is extremely important. So we already integrate the values of being a global citizen into our program, not just in the international program, across all our programs, but especially in the international program. And also we teach global citizenship. I teach global citizenship in 5th year. The theory, the notions, debates and discussions and actions. And I think it's a very interesting topic. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. So let's get started. What is global citizenship? That is a question we can ask ourselves. What I'd like you to do, I would like you to participate straight away. I want you to fill in this whiteboard I'm going to share with you. And I'm going to give you a minute to tell me what you think global citizenship is. You can click on the little post-it and you can write in your definition. And I'd like to see how you compare to what our students defined global citizenship as, and also what the official bodies define global citizenship as. So I'll give you, 30 seconds to a minute. I see we have some participants already. If you just click on one of the post-its and you can type in what you think. Responsible citizen. Fantastic. What else do we have? Open-minded. Great. Diversity. Sharing. Understanding. So we have lots of empathetic words coming through here. Great. Give you a few more seconds and we'll carry on with the presentation. Knowledge. Fantastic. Knowledge is power. Respect. Great. And they come out with that sharing now. So, Fanny, sorry, I don't know why my presentation has gone. Could you reshare? Thank you. So we'll have a look at that. Now let's have a look. We'll come back to this later on. How does the UN define global citizenship? So the global citizenship, according to them, is global citizens who act without limits or geographical distinctions. They do so outside the traditional spheres of power. Their goal is to defend human dignity and promote social accountability and international solidarity with tolerance, inclusion, and recognition of diversity. We've just seen this. Occupying pride of place in word and deed, which means in action. So reflecting the multiplicity of the world around us. GlobalCitizen.org is an organization we'll be looking at later on whose, let's say, formalized and modernized what it means to be a global citizen. They see global citizens as action takers, and they very much focus on action, impact makers, one world, one people, and how the effect or the actions of one person can have a profound effect on many. They believe it's this generation which has the power in its hands. There's also the Global Citizens Initiative. They believe that as a result, of course, of living in a hyper-connected and interdependent world, global citizens actually have a layer of responsibility, and this is a word which is coming back more and more. Being a global citizen is feeling responsible for others. Oxfam, English British charity. Every person is a citizen of the world, and it's about, once again, how decisions in one part of the planet can affect people living in a different part of it. And I think we're seeing this a lot now, whether it's through war, whether it's through industry, whether it's through illness or pandemics, as we've lived through. This can have a butterfly effect. And then also we have a common humanity, and we're all of equal worth. We positively engage in different identities and culture, and we share the Earth's resources fairly, and of course upholding the human rights of all. We have different definitions, but I think we're more or less on the same page. Global citizen is somebody who does not necessarily focus on his own backyard, himself, his neighborhood, his region, his country. He also sees beyond borders and is concerned with global issues. But being a global citizen is not new. The first philosopher in the West, apparently, to give perfectly explicit expression to what cosmopolitanism is, was the philosopher, cynic Diogenes in the 4th century. When he was asked where he came from, he replied, "I'm a citizen of the world." So this is nothing new. And of course, we have many institutions in the world which promote and defend citizens of the world. You know, it's nothing new. We have the UN, we have The Hague defending human rights, we have the European Union bringing us together, nations, we have coalitions for political and economic stability. We have huge institutions across the world, that's nothing new, which have been pushing for human rights, dignity, equality, environmental stability, peace for years, of course. But the difference is that now those institutions are seen as distant. The figureheads of those institutions are seen as non-relatable. Whereas what we're going to look at in a minute, what we consider new global citizenship, it's citizens and activists and leaders which have more resonance with people and people feel closer to, and that's the difference. They're still doing those jobs, of course, but we also can do those jobs, that's peace resolution, that sustainability, that equality, that equity goals through different actions, non-official bodies, as we saw in the beginning of this presentation. So what's kind of changing? How is global citizenship defined or perceived now? Now, global citizenship can be seen in two ways. We can see a global citizen as somebody who is well-traveled, who is worldly, who is multilingual, who maybe has different nationalities, who's had the opportunity to see the world and experience what the world is. That could be seen as somebody who was in the elite. Nowadays, people look at global citizenship more as a state of mind, a mindset. You can be a global citizen with never have left your country, never have left your town. It doesn't mean to say you're not a global citizen, you can't make a difference, and that you are not globally connected or empathetic or understanding of other cultures. We also see some people might think, you know, well, global citizenship, look at all the uprising of nationalism in the world at the moment. Yes, of course, in Europe, for example, we are seeing different countries becoming more insular. We saw Brexit voted in 2016, you know, to leave the European Union. We are seeing across Europe different hard right-wing parties gaining power. We've seen it in Poland, we've seen it in Hungary, recently with Sweden. They also voted in a hard right government, as well as Italy recently. So yes, we do have this, you know, kind of nationalistic tendency, but it's still the minority of the westernized countries. But these these models and these people kind of voting and supporting these people, it's also their stances are based a lot around the traditional family model, and the also sometimes in Europe around the Christian kind of ideals, as some experts have said. And it's not so much the battle with, you know, Christianism and Islam, for example. It can also be global citizens seen as being secular, not particularly living by any religious values, no matter what they are. It's living by open-mindedness, and for them that sometimes is the enemy, is this secular way of living and enlightenment values. So diversity, equity, inclusion, openness, sharing, this can be seen as more of a threat to those types of parties than other religions or other issues. And those enlightenment values also align with global citizenship values. Also, why is global citizenship easier? Why is it easier to be a global citizen nowadays? So we have more information is shared, more information is seen. We have 24 news channels, we have access to information at the touch of a button. Obviously, communication between nations and communication between people is very easy. This facilitates global citizenship actions and galvanizes our connectivity and galvanizes our interest and our movements in global citizenship. And of course, transportation. You know, travel has been democratized. The low-cost travel industry changed the way that we had access to other cultures. This also facilitates understanding, intercultural exchange, experience, and obviously gaining knowledge of others. So this has facilitated us becoming global citizens, technology, and advancements in democratizing access. So, you know, this is how global citizenship is becoming easier to practice. So we're in a more connected world, as you know, and world problems and global issues are actually more visible. So it becomes more tangible to people. It becomes more real because we have access, we can see it, and we can do something about it, even on a small scale. And that's why global citizenship, people feel concerned, because it is more tangible. Now, global citizenship, belonging and feeling is on the rise. I've looked at two very deep studies, which are amazing, and they're one of them is 5 years old now. It's going to be very interesting to see the new version, which hopefully should be coming out after the pandemic and after the Ukraine war. But at the time, for example, in 2016, what's very interesting, and these two different studies show the same thing, is that 56% of emerging market countries see themselves as global citizens first and foremost, before they're national citizens, much more than in developed and industrialized countries. So the emerging markets actually identify more as global citizens. Now, is this due to the fact they want to become part of this more modernized, industrialized world? They aspire to be global. And we've seen this in the other study. These two different studies completely cross over with the same results. So Nigeria, for example, China, Peru, India were the highest scoring countries in this survey, where they saw themselves as global citizens and not national citizens. The same study identified Germans in Europe as the lowest scoring country to see themselves as global citizens. And the conclusions drawn in this study from some experts said that that could be due to several reasons. Through the 2008 financial crisis, for example, which hit hard Europe, and especially the leading economy in Europe, so showing the effects of globalization, and then also the way that Angela Merkel opened the doors of Germany to a million Syrian refugees, could explain this attitude of seeing themselves first and foremost as Germans and not as global citizens. What's very interesting in this amazing survey by the Varkey Foundation, I would recommend you to go and see and read this. They did a report which is called Global Young People Report. 20,000 young people were surveyed. In the previous report, it was 18,000 people over 20 countries. And once again, becoming a global citizen, so contributing to a wider good, wider society outside of your own frontiers, was less important to industrialized and modern countries. And the top scoring countries where they felt it was very important were Brazil, India, Israel, Turkey, Indonesia, China, for example. And also what correlates, it's very interesting, is that the most unhappy countries of this survey were Japan and South Korea, but they were also the ones that were least concerning, being global citizens. So the unhappiness factor maybe makes you more insular, concentrating on your own country, on your own well-being, and not even thinking about beyond yourself, maybe your own town, your city, your region, your country. And those countries some of the countries which scored high on wanting to contribute more to the world were some of the happiest countries. So for example, Israel had a happiness index factor of over 80. Indonesia also had over 80. Once again, India was a very happy country. So it's very interesting to see if there is a correlation between happy, aspiring to want to be helping others. And how do we become a global citizen? Because in this survey as well, young people who wanted to do more didn't know how to. The two main reasons which came back time and time again with the majority of the 20 countries was, I don't know how to help. I don't know how to be a global citizen. And also, I think I lack skills to be able to be a global citizen. So what's been done about this? Well, ISCOM, we try and teach global citizenship and encourage people, but it's actually not in many curriculums in schools, which is a surprise. What would be amazing would be to include global citizenship, to introduce children at a young age to the effects of globalization and also the positiveness of being a global citizen. And global doesn't mean not being local. Local actions can have a global effect. And the UN has been trying to do this for years. And they have a global citizenship education development program where they have introduced this into curriculums in some countries, and they have actions around more than 150 countries. And what's once again surprising is that the countries which have mainly taken on board the global citizenship education are actually developing countries. There's lots of action in India, there's lots of action in Indonesia, for example. And wouldn't it be great if the westernized countries, who often have the most effect on the world, they could also include the global citizenship education program? So they do exercises and programs around tolerance, social justice, sustainability, diversity, and also how to take action. And they do different programs which they work on the cognitive element, the emotional element, and the behavioral element to encourage people to think, to analyze, and then to act. And they have different ways of doing it. Things like very easy ways is learning foreign languages, gaining intercultural skills, and learning how we're all connected. Other things is going deeper into understanding human rights and humanitarian postures, taking individual responsibility for global issues, so feeling responsible, once again that word coming back, and engaging to solve problems. And the third and final step, they believe, is understanding history, understanding geopolitics, understanding the causes of global issues, global problems, investigating to want to know why these things are happening, to become a better global citizen, and a global citizen who can change, so becoming an agent of transformation. So this is the programs they put into place. Wouldn't it be brilliant if we could implement this and making the, we've seen in the survey, giving the tools to young people to become global citizens. But we actually are global citizens. Without realizing it, we're all global citizens. Some things we do every day means we are global citizens. For example, look at the pandemic we all went through. It wasn't our choice, but some of our actions were actual global citizenship actions. For example, self-sacrifice for the greater good, not going out, isolating, obeying what the official governments and bodies were telling us was for the greater good, engaging in cooperation across governments and nations was engaging in global citizenship, expressing empathy and compassion towards others, global citizenship, respecting and appreciating public health services, and also understanding that a local origin can have global effects. So who is a global citizen? Well, like I just said, we're all global citizens, and we can be a global citizen from a very small action to a very big implication. For example, just being aware of a global issue is already being part of the global citizenship movement. Talking about it to others, you are taking global citizenship to the next level, sharing information, and then actually taking action. And now, obviously, the Generation Z, the young generation, more connected, more involved, very concerned with world issues. Some believe that they are born global citizens. They are the digital native generation, and they best embody what a today global citizen is. And we'll be looking at that. So in this Varkey Foundation, actually, we found that young people were very positive and very open-minded. Some countries obviously were lower down on the scale, as we saw, but the majority of the countries were very open-minded on the values of global citizenship, such as equity, equality, human rights, workers' rights, and such issues. We saw, for example, that 3/4 of young people globally believe that transgender people should have the same rights as non-transgender people. Young people in 14 out of the 20 countries thought that the government should make it easier for immigrants to live and work legally in their country. 89% believe that men and women should be treated equally. This is an amazing statistics, and there's many more. So this shows that the young generation, 20,000 of these people interviewed, were very much in the very open-minded, very forward-thinking mindset. And as this academic said, it's great. It could mean that global citizenship is only just getting started. And the result of their digital nativity, maybe that's the reason. The connectivity works on young people's mind. It's about structuring ideas and how we share those ideas. And the Varkey Foundation, they also said that growing inequality, the ongoing refugee crisis, and the relatively poor provision of education in many developing countries may still be easier to solve than existential threats such as climate change. So if these risks are to be averted, the current generation of young people will be the ones to do it. They won't be able to do it without a concern for the world that goes beyond their family, their neighborhood, and their community. This is maybe the new global citizen. It's the digital global citizen. Nowadays, we are seeing global citizenship movements from this digital native generation, movements which start online and then move to the street, whereas before, mainly movements were starting on the street and then getting proliferated elsewhere. Now, a global citizenship movement can start online. A hashtag can be extremely powerful. And this generation is helping global movements, global issues gain and bring people together and helping people become global citizens. The arm of a global citizen nowadays is his telephone, is his smartphone, is his computer. And this is incredible to think the power of technology in bringing people together through, unfortunately, difficulties and issues, because global citizenship is mainly around negative problems. It's not. It's very rarely around something positive. Global citizenship brings us together around problems, and nowadays the digital global citizen has his arm, which is his phone. And what are his concerns? Well, climate change is, according to the UN survey, is one of the first concerns. Violence and conflict, lack of basic needs, and discrimination and inequality. And we've seen what are the new global citizenship movements. These are just some examples in the last few years. We've seen how powerful a hashtag can be. We've seen how powerful when countries and citizens come together around a cause. And I think these are very illustrative of the recent movements from a global citizenship perspective. We had a Black Lives Matter movement. We had the hashtag Black Lives Matter, or BLM. We had the Me Too movement, which started in 2017, which started and snowballed and resulted in condemnations. We started other movements. We have the climate change movement, started by a 16-year-old Swedish. You cannot get more global than that. And once again, it's been galvanized thanks to social media and the hashtag. And more recently, we've seen, unfortunately, the unfortunate situation in Iran. Now, Mahsa Amini has been shared more than 80 million times just on Twitter. We've seen protests, we've seen solidarity and condemnation. We've been on this image and more information on what's happening in Iran through social media. Just sharing just tweeting something, sharing information, liking, being aware. This is helping. This is, being part of this. And we can ask ourselves, yes, it's great to be part of this digital movement, this new global citizenship, but does it actually do any good? Does it actually make a difference? And that's the thing. It's not always tangible. This talk today is not black or white. There's so many elements that you can debate. But let's have a look at some actual facts. If we take the Black Lives Matter movement, the online movement, the in the street movement that came from the death of George Floyd and before other also tragedies, Breonna Taylor and many others, as it built and galvanized through social media and spread across the world, what were the actual impacts of that global citizenship movement that I've coined a global citizenship movement, because I do believe it was one? Well, the hashtag was used over 100 million times. Between 15 and 25 million people alone in the US protested in support of Black Lives Matter, and 60 other countries followed suit. Most rallies were actually predominantly white. So it was also showing that people were concerned with this question of police violence and inequality in the treatment of Black people in America and elsewhere. It sparked high awareness and unprecedented press coverage, and the three founders were awarded the Sydney Peace Prize, among other things. I'm not going to go through all this, but it's just to show that this actually did have an impact in the States. First of all, Derek Chauvin, the police officer who killed George Floyd, was sentenced to life. And many things were changed in the United States. So there was defunding of the police in certain states. There were councils and town halls which desolidarized from the Minneapolis State Police. Universities didn't use them anymore for security, and other institutions. There were laws which were pushed forward and speeded up, where, for example, Breonna's law, where police officers were no longer allowed to go into homes without knocking on the door. We saw statues of Confederate soldiers being removed. We saw in the UK statues of former slave masters were toppled. We saw concrete action. In America, things happened. It's not perfect. We've been seeing lately that things there's still violence, but there were laws, there were things put into place, there were action, which could be attributed to this very powerful global citizenship movement. But then again, in other countries, we saw that it didn't have the effect which people thought it would have. In France, for example, the chokehold was banned and then re-allowed again after police protests. The government denied that discriminatory checks were existing on random people, and then but they also put in a hotline to people to report them. So it was quite ambiguous. We also had the new law coming in France where it's illegal to film police, for example. So it didn't have the effect, because in France, Australia, the UK, and in America, they were the biggest protests of Black Lives Matter. So it didn't always have a knock-on effect onto laws in those countries. In the UK, for example, they ordered an investigation into inequality, and their report stated that there was not systematic racism in the UK, and many activists denounced the report, saying that the Black Lives Matter protests in Britain have very little impact on changing policing practice, for example. And he also said, we no longer see a Britain where the system is deliberately rigged. Sorry, the report stated that the system was not deliberately rigged against ethnic minorities, and there was uproar of this report that was ordered. So we saw that in some countries it had an effect on law, and in some countries activists and experts believe that it didn't have a direct impact. But all this, we're a communication school, we're ISCOM, and we teach these subjects because we want to have a general culture for our students. We want them to be more open-minded, to understand issues, but also we want to link and see how is this connecting to communication and marketing. Well, as we know, brands are getting involved with movements, citizenship movements, and young people, especially young people, but in general, consumers, they want brands to be involved. They think it's important for brands to take a stand on social and political issues. So 70% of consumers believe this, according to Sprout Social's latest survey. And we have many different surveys saying the same thing. We have a Deloitte survey, which is 70% as well, and other ones. So why do they think brands should be involved in issues, important issues, get involved in citizenship movements and these, trending and these important, worldwide issues? Well, they think it's important because they have an impact, because they appeal to a diverse range of people. they have large platforms to reach people, and they receive substantial media coverage. These are just some of the reasons that people believe brands should get involved. Channel 4 did a survey in the UK and discovered that 60% of 16 to 24-year-olds claim to notice ads more if they deal with important issues. And they also dubbed millennials as the Crusader generation. So 94% of whom want to use their skills for a cause, and 77% have already gotten involved in charity or change making. So, you know, purpose, we hear a lot about purpose marketing. It's not just about purpose marketing, it's also about movement making. The brand connecting the consumer, and they partner together to try and change the world. And it's really putting into action as a brand, you know, credibly, you know, choosing a cause, choosing an issue, and, you know, really going from it from A to Z. So how do brands do this? Well, they have to be relevant. They can't just come on and start supporting a cause, you know, willy-nilly. It has to be built up. It has to be thought through. They can give voice to movements through their platforms. They can make products to support movements. They can actually change their product lines. And they can also inspire action and change at a large scale. They can evoke and inspire emotion. So they identify the passion points of their consumers. And this young generation is connected. They want transparency. They want accountability. They are involved. They're digitally connected. And, you know, brands need to recognize these young consumers, this digital global citizenship movement, who they are. They can encourage involvement. They can facilitate active involvement through the things they put into place. They can create and build community of the communities they already have. And they can put their money where their mouth is as brands to actually be authentic and to prove they're doing something to change. So, for example, you know, 58% of consumers think that brands should take a stand on human rights, for example. They think that it's all brands should take a stand on human rights. Another high scorer is all brands should take a stance on labour laws, for example. And what's actually happened? Now, talking of Black Lives Matter, what actually came from this movement, after the Black Lives Matter movement, the worldwide movement, especially in the US, many brands put their money where their mouth is. And they understood that this global citizenship movement, this time was very important, and they actually made concrete action. For example, Peloton, they they promised to invest 100 million to deliver broadly across 5 areas to fight racial injustice and inequity. So they detailed their plans and their $100 million investment into, you know, lowering inequity and racial injustice. We had Sephora as well, which was the first brand in the world to do the 15% pledge, which was started, which is pledging that 15% of their shelf space is dedicated to Black-owned companies. So they got the ball rolling on the 15% pledge and led the way for other brands. And they very, very detailed details on their website about what are they doing, where they are with it, and which brands are they stocking, and also highlighting, you know, Black entrepreneurs. And then the Yum Group, which is KFC, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and other food companies. From 2020 onwards, they realized the importance of social inequality. And so they also put money where their mouth is and really put into action a plan across all their companies around inequality and also around climate change. So they have many actions, things like increasing the number of women in senior leadership. They engaging supplier development engagement around human rights, educating underrepresented people of color and women, helping them with entrepreneurship, for example, career mobilities as well for Black individuals in the US, and many more things they actually put into place. They have a huge section of their website dedicated to how are they investing also $100 million in these actions. So sometimes, you know, these global citizenship movements, they have an impact, and brands are listening, and brands are making the choice to, you know, listen to society at large, who are their customers as well, and on the long term. Because if you do something just one-off, obviously it's not credible to consumers. These are long-term investments over several years. So one could correlate that, and these CEOs have actually stated that this is correlated directly to the social climate and the social movements at that time. GlobalCitizenship.org is an organization which is quite recent, which was started by a young man who's been engaged since he was little in causes. And he started this actual thing called Global Citizenship Org. It's not the only one. This is just one who's coined it. And they bring people around, especially music. They have a concert with huge stars, but they also engage young people about how can I actually make a change. And they've managed to get these brands supporting them and many others. So these brands, Procter & Gamble, Cisco, Accenture, Google, they are also with globalcitizenship.org, creating and facilitating how to get involved as consumers, me and you, but also putting and supporting these global citizenship issues, which is such as inequality, poverty, and sustainability. And we'll just have a quick look at a video of how Procter & Gamble, what have they actually done with the global citizenship movement, this particular movement. They've done lots more actions, but this is just a video showing you what they did with this organization so far. Let's have a look.
We're committing to doubling our donation for a total of 100 million period products that will help keep girls in school.
We're going to get through it, and we're going to be better for it when we come out the other side.
We target health services in marginalized areas.
I work with the charity In Kind Direct.
This is our home.
We stand with all those fighting for survival, equality, and justice.
There is a responsibility by those who have the privilege to amplify the voices of those who might not.
Innovation is at the core of P&G.
Procter & Gamble will provide 200 million liters of clean water in Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, South Sudan, and Yemen.
Whether it's the fight against COVID or the fight for racial equality, we all can make an impact.
Just some examples of how Procter & Gamble is supporting the globalcitizenship.org organization. So brands are getting involved. Brands are listening to what's happening in global citizenship. They're listening and they're knowing that people want to see brands engaged, want to see brands making commitments, and want to see them involved, helping them be active. So maybe at the end of this talk, you're asking yourselves, how can I be a global citizen? As I said before, you already are one. You already are doing actions you may not realize, which are part of a global citizenship movement. But if you want to be more concrete, here's 2 tips for you on how you can be a global citizen, a new global citizen, a digital global citizen, or an active, in real life global citizen. So citizen.org, talking of which, you can go onto their website and you can learn how to be a global citizen. Now, you can do something very small, like tweeting this message, for example. They give you tools of how to be a global citizen. So how can I help? So you can start by a tweet. So they give you a template, you copy it and paste, and you tweet it. You can sign a petition. You can share your story. You can give your opinion. You can sign up to a protest. You can sign up to a club, a group. Globalcitizen.org is trying to make it easier to help people to become global citizenships. And they're also asking people their opinion. Does it mean nothing to you? Does it mean something to you? Being a global citizen doesn't mean rejecting local citizenship. What I found interesting in the exam for global citizenship studies in my 5th year student group was that when I asked them what was more important, local or global citizenship, all of them nearly replied that both are important in equal measure and one cannot survive without the other. And that, to be a global citizen, you have to be first and foremost a local citizen, but also still see the bigger picture, have this 2-level view. And that's what it is. It's not one or the other. It's 2 combining at the same time. And then another way you can be a global citizen is going to the UN website, which is amazing. And there's different levels of global citizenshipness. And the first one is the lazy global citizen, it's actually called. So how can you be a global citizen from your couch? And there's some tips. For example, you know, you can retweet, you can share, you can, you know, be aware of, you can talk to your friends about this type of thing. So if you're not sure if you're a global citizen or not, you can actually test yourself with this link that's just popped up. It's the global citizenship test you can take to see how much of a global citizen you are. And then you can maybe take action and improve the points: empathy, action, understanding, intercultural understanding, etc. And maybe see where you're lacking in your global citizenshipness. Not that you have to be one, but just in case you're curious if you want to be. We encourage our students, we encourage everyone to have this global mindset, to have this global empathy, to have this understanding, to also understand geopolitical issues, to understand where these movements come from, where they're born from, what's the systemic problems, where things are, you know, become these huge global issues and then turn into movements sometimes, and then, you know, can make a change. So it's we always want to keep this open-mindedness and to, you know, educate and just give the information available to our students if they themselves want to become global citizens. So that's the end of our little conference. Thank you for participating. This is just some of the sources I used for the presentation. This video will be available to share for anybody who wants to send on to any other participants. I don't think we have a chat for you to be able to ask questions. I'm going to have a look on the whiteboard later on, and I will integrate it into my presentation that we will share on the platforms, and see what your thoughts were on global citizenship. Thank you very much for listening to our conference Avenir. I hope you found some of the statistics, some of the facts, some of the observations interesting, and I look forward to seeing you in the next conference later on this year.